So, naming of organic compounds. So, in naming organic compounds, you have to know some basic things like met is for one, earth is for two carbons. So, met is for one, earth is for two. Know it that way. Prop is for three. Boats is for four. Pence is for five. S is for six. Eps is for seven. Oct is for eight. None is for nine. Deck is for 10. So take note of this first. So now we'll talk about the alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes and their general formula. So now let's say we have alkane. Take note of all this, can write it down. Mets, earths, prop, boats. So they represent the number of carbons. So that means one carbon. One carbon is met. Two carbons is earth. Three carbons is prop, as in four carbons is boats, like that. So take note. So we'll still use it. So these are just the basics. Again, so let's talk about the name, functional group, and prefix or suffix. So name, functional group. So I'll just take it one by one. Functional group, prefix, and suffix. So now I'll take alkanes first. Alkanes. So the general formula for alkane. So this one is name. So the general formula for alkane is CN H2N plus 1. So that is the general formula. So the suffix is ANE. So remember, I said met is for one carbon. So this suffix, you end it with it. So that is methane. So now, the general formula is CN H2N plus 2. So for alkanes, please take note. So general formula for alkanes is CN H2N plus 2. Now let's form the first 10 member of alkane, so you can have idea. So let's talk about the first 10 member of alkane. So I'll group it like for one carbon, for two carbons. So let me say alkane. Formula. So now for alkane, we have number one. So one carbon, that will be methane. So that is alkane group. So ANE. So they will end with, so one is meth. So the suffix is ane, so it will end with ane. Remember, the formula for alkane is CnH2n plus 2. So that means if n is 1, that is number 1 carbon. So that means this will be C1H2 bracket 1 plus 2. That will be C1H2 plus 2. 2 times 1, 2. So we don't usually write subscript 1. So this will be CH4. So this is for methane. This is general formula for all the alkane. So we'll be using it one by one. So methane is CH4. Methane is CH4. So the structural formula for methane now, because it's 1 carbon, so it will be C. So you now have 4 bonds. Yeah. So this will be H H H H. So this is methane. So 1 carbon and 4 hydrogen. So now let me talk about the bond so that you will know how I use that bond now. Remember, carbon have valency of 4. So because it belongs to group 4, we have done valency. So carbon have valency of 4. So if you have carbon like this, then it must have 4 bond, as in round it. So carbon must have 4 bond, that is single bonds. So like that. Let's take another element like oxygen. Oxygen now have valency of 2. We've talked about valency before. It belongs to group 6, so the valency will be 2. So for 2, it should have 2 bonds, because the valency of oxygen is 2. So anytime you write oxygen here, it must have 2 bonds. Let's see another one. Hydrogen. Let's say nitrogen. Nitrogen is in group 5, so its valency is 3. Watch video on valency to understand better. So now the valency of nitrogen is 3. So if you have bond in nitrogen, then it must be 3. Or so the bond must be 3 for nitrogen. Also, hydrogen are all the group 7. Chlorine, fluorine, bromine, they belong to group 7. They all have 1 as their valency. So anyone that have 1 as valency will have just 1 bond. That means the bond you have here is the number of valency of that element. So take note. So that is how you can know whether you are writing a correct name or correct bond. So if it is oxygen, you should know all the bonds you must have must not pass 2. Like that. Okay, as we proceed, I will remind you of these bonds. Now methane is number 1 and is CH4, because the general formula is CnH2n plus 2 for alkane. And to draw the bond, the chain, so you have C. Remember, C is carbon. It should have 4 bonds because it belongs to group 4. So now all those bonds, you just attach hydrogen to it. So that is CH4. If you notice now, you will see hydrogen have 1 bond, as in just 1 bond attached to it. So hydrogen here to have 1 bond. So hydrogen will always have 1 bond, but carbon will have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Round it. Take note. So this is the structural formula for methane. So now let's see number 2, because we will do the rest. Number 2. Now I told you 2 is earth. Add the functional group, so it will be ethane. Anytime you have 2 carbons now, it will be ethane. So now I have 2 carbons. Remember, each carbon should have 4 bonds, as in like this. So these 2 carbons will combine this way So you see how the bond join together, so it will now look like this. So that is why if you see the bond for the two, you say this way. Take note. So that means this first carbon will have 4 bonds. The second carbon too will have 4 bonds. So it must be 4 bonds for carbon. Now you fill all the periphery with hydrogens. That is all the corners. So this is H, 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 H. So we are just doing it as basic now. So this is how many carbon? 1, 2. So we have 2 carbons. So that is ethane, like that. Now let's say 3 carbons. So you will do the rest. So in the next video I will do for alkenes. This one is for alkane. So before we will relate everything, this is just basic. Please take note. So methane, ethane. Remember, number 3 is prop. So that will be propane. So propane. 4 is butz. So that will be butane. Please take note of the first 10 that I mentioned earlier. So now propane will be for ethane, number 2. So the general formula is CN H2N plus 2. Remember, if N is equals to 2, so now put 2 here. This will become C2 H2 bracket 2 plus 2. That will be C2 H2 times 2 4 plus 2 6. So this will be C2 H6. So that is 2 times 2 4 plus 2 6. So this is ethane. Now for 3, if N is 3, we have Cn H2N plus 2. So if number of if N is 3, then you have C3 H2 bracket 3 plus 2. So that will be C3, 2 times 3 is 6 plus 2 8. C3H8. That means propane is C3H8. So now continue to decane now. So let me see what you will write. So do the rest to decane and also draw the structural formula. For example, like propane, now I have 3 carbons. 1, 2, 3. So I have to fill it with its bond. So remember, each carbon should have 4 bonds. 4, 4, 4, like that. So now fill it with its hydrogen. So this is propane, like that. So we'll later know how to draw different structure, but for now follow this pattern. So do your own to decane 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's see.